This isn't about getting into sustainability. This is about changing everything. And my logic was that if I can prove that, there's no excuse for anybody to be using nasty cleaning products. At 2 degrees, we lose 99% of all coral reefs. Effectively, the bottom of the food chain is dead. If we increase soil fertility by 0.4%, it wipes carbon out completely.
Welcome to the Lunch at Work podcast, where we talk to experts about how to make workplaces better.
So today I'm with Mark Jankovich, who's the CEO of Delphis Eco. I'm going to ask you just first of all, as I know you fairly well, but to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and how and why you started off Delphis Eco. I think that would be a good way to start.
I've changed my title from CEO to CSO, which is Chief Sustainability Officer. Going back a bit, I worked in the city for 15 years. Why cleaning products? The story there is that I was on holiday with my wife and my baby daughter in Italy, and I saw a lady with a bucket of soap suds pour into the street, which then ran past my feet and into the water where we had just been, where they'd been fishing the fish out. And there's a massive disconnect between these two things. And I was thinking, can I do something different? And that's the beginning of cleaning products. Why I got into cleaning products, not knowing a single thing about cleaning products other than that they were really bad and people used a lot of them and they were pouring them in the sea.
So how do you discover then that plants can clean plates? Because that's something that always baffles me.
Having worked out that I wanted to do something around sustainability, and then I wanted to build a business that was for profit and for good, I then went, okay, well, what does that look like? And I came across a company in Hong Kong that was making paints for ships, but it was solvent-free. So as a ship goes through the water, it leaches solvents. And I was thinking, well, that's actually can't be very good for all the ships that are going through the ocean every day. So I looked at that business, and then I heard a friend of mine is Australian, and he told me that they were making cleaning products from gum tree sap. So I thought, oh, that's really interesting. If they can make cleaning products from gum tree sap, surely we can make cleaning products in the UK, because it's very important to make them in the UK, from plant-based ingredients. So again, on Google, trying to find out as much as I could, came across a scientist in Liverpool who had established the fact that you could use rapeseed, sugar beet, sugar cane. If you think about it, if you take a potato and you ferment a potato, you get lactic acid and you get bioethanol. Mm-hmm. So lactic acid is a disinfectant, and ethanol, you can fly a jet. So the reality is that using plant-based ingredients, you've got a very strong base ingredient to use as a cleaning product.
You mentioned that it was so important to make the products in the UK. Why do you think that is?
The two really important elements there that we are I'm totally fastidious, and we as a business are fastidious on. One is, if it's made in the UK, it has a fantastic social value element. So we are creating local jobs and making sure that you are employing people in your local community, and then the kind of ripple down of having local jobs in the country. Really, really, really important. So we make 100% of our stuff in the UK. Commercially, not the greatest idea, because manufacturing in the UK is not as established as it is anywhere else in the world. And certainly we could have done this much easier using European infrastructure, but I'm hard on that line. So we make everything in the UK, and I'm proud that we employ a lot of people who make our stuff across a number of factories. And then secondly, obviously, from a carbon perspective, not having to ship it from millions of miles. And one of our sayings is we don't believe in shipping water on water. Mm-hmm. Make it in the UK, reduce your carbon miles, and create social value.
So right from the off, it was about doing the right things throughout, really, for every decision you made.
Starting a business from scratch with a fresh pair of eyes, you have the ability to look at everything. And you can question absolutely everything. So I looked at everything, and only when you start reflecting back to go, oh my God, why did you do that? Or, how is the journey manifested? And it's clear that I haven't known the path. And I think any entrepreneur doesn't know. They know where they're kind of going, but they don't know how they're going to get there. Yeah. And you look back, you go, actually, the footsteps are all in the right place, where I'm going, I really need to do something positive. Let's think about the infrastructure. Let's think about how we're going to build this. And I've got lots of random steps, which have kind of got us to where we are today.
And I think that's inevitably you're going to have those random steps to get to your goal. But how did you kick things off? How did you sort of start things up at the beginning, and how did you get the organization up and running?
The most important thing for me right in the beginning was eco-friendly products don't work. So they don't work and they're more expensive. So I, again, chose a slightly curious and very hard path where I went, well, I'm going to prove that they work in the hardest environments. So I'm going to prove that they work cleaning shopping centers, and I'm going to prove that they work cleaning streets. But I said, I'm going to prove that eco-friendly products work in the commercial world. And my logic was that if I can prove that, then there's no excuse for anybody to be using nasty cleaning products, because I can then say, well, if I can clean 1,000 schools, surely you can use it to clean your home. I got on the phone and called everybody, as many people as I could. And at the bottom of the list was Iceland.
Nice.
There's just absolutely no chance that this store is going to have any interest. And I was blown away. Malcolm Walker, who founder, owner, starter of Iceland, is an absolute legend. He has the hugest respect for his staff. And for him, it was all about, I want my staff to be in an environment where we're not using nasty cleaning products. So I was invited up to head office in Runcorn, and then I got asked to do trials. And obviously, as the founder of the business, you do everything. So, at 4 a.m, there I was in an Iceland store somewhere in the middle of winter, cleaning the floor with the cleaning team. Iceland chose us because of their respect for their staff. What was interesting there was they set up a call center, thinking there's 1,000 stores that we were going to shift across from what they were using to us. And they had a call center set up that they thought they were going to get deluged with complaints going, oh my God, the stuff doesn't work, and it's going to be a nightmare. They didn't get a single phone call. And day 2, they just disbanded.
Wow, okay.
Didn't get a phone call. So it proved beyond any shadow that across 1,000 stores, across 1,000 Iceland stores that had huge footfall, eco-friendly cleaning products work fantastically. And that was the hard yards, being up at 4 a.m, cleaning stores, doing what you need to do when you're starting a business.
So lots of surprises on the way on your journey, really. So as well as cleaning products, because I know we talked recently about the farm that you started to get involved in. So again, I guess your vision is changing, you're diversifying a little bit. So could you tell us a bit about the farm and what you're doing?
The farm piece for me is, at the moment, we're using virgin products, let's say. So sugar beet and rapeseed comes out of the ground, it gets processed, and we take the fermented elements and we make cleaning product. My sense is, can we use food waste and process food waste and go to that kind of next level tech and take food waste from farms, or take waste that farmers that are not selling to supermarkets, go and collect all of that and then ferment that secondhand, so to speak. So it's not a virgin product, it's a secondhand product. It's either food waste from our customers and or taking food waste that isn't going to, 30% of farm produce doesn't get to the supermarket.
As much as that, really. Wow.
So can we take that and can we use that to use as base ingredients to make our cleaning products? So that's one exciting piece of the farm, and how do we use that farm infrastructure. The other thing that I think is really, really, really important, again, going back to social value, and I think farming today, instead of it being I have the huge respect for farmers. I went to a farming conference last week for 2 days, and it's a totally humbling experience when you are around these people who produce our food and are genuine experts in what they're doing. How do we bring communities into farming? So how do we bring more people onto farms instead of being one farmer driving his tractor? How do we get people onto a farm to grow veggies, to pick fruit, to be part of nature? And that for me is another really important element of bringing people back into nature. It's good for mental health. It's good for food security. It's got a huge number of benefits. But I think it's really, really important. I mean, we saw food shortages in January, February.
Yeah.
So from a climate change perspective, what's a terrifying statistic is the climate that we're experiencing is a 30-year lag on carbon.
Right.
So if we stopped today and did not put a single gram of carbon into the air for 30 years, we are going to experience the climate change
to another generation, effectively.
This isn't it's going to go away. This is, we are going to have to learn to go over this hump.
Yeah.
If we stop today. The UK had the hottest June ever recorded since records began. The empty shelves in January and February, that's now a thing. We are not going to have those tomatoes in January and February next year, because where they've come from, unless they change where they're being grown, a hotter climate is here. So can we then go, okay, let's bring the Spanish tomatoes into the UK, and can we have communities growing them? And I think that for me seems logical and conceivable. So that's what I'm trying to do with the farm, bringing food security and social value and communities together.
Because things like those headlines with the world's hottest day, you think could be shocking to everybody, and yet some people still don't believe in climate change. It's surprisingly common to hear that, really. So how do you address that, do you think? Or how do we address that type of viewpoint? Can you change people's views?
It's really, really important. And I'm stunned that there isn't, the messaging isn't getting out to people to go, do you know the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees? And you hear a narrative of people going, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, 5 degrees. There is no 2 degrees. Between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees, that half a degree, 1.5 degrees, we lose, I think it's 87% of all coral reefs. So we wipe out the bottom of the food chain. At 2 degrees, we lose 99% of all coral reefs. And again, but at which point, effectively, the bottom of the food chain is dead. So therefore, everything else falls over. 300 million climate refugees by 2030. So what we're seeing in Paris and what we're seeing in all over the world, we're going to have major issues. So we need to address and tell people that we've got to stop the carbon piece. But on the flip side, talking to these kids, I go, but it's super exciting.
Yeah.
It's amazingly exciting. The days are gone where we sit here going, I'm the old guy and I know everything. Those days are absolutely gone. If a 15-year-old, 14-year-old, 10-year-old, 18-year-old turns up and goes, I have an idea, we are all listening. So it is a phenomenally exciting time for the next generation to come up and deliver amazing technologies, amazing climate adapting solutions. And I genuinely believe they will.
So you're quite optimistic, actually, despite all the statistics which fill me with fear, to be honest. Hearing them, the stark sort of future it sounds like, really. But actually, the younger generation is the hope, I guess, really. And the education piece, I guess, is what we just got to keep labouring away at.
I suppose the question I was asked once was, I want to get into, say, sustainability. And I said, I think you're looking at it the wrong way around. This isn't about getting into sustainability. This is about changing everything with sustainability in mind. So it's redesigning everything from education to cars to our entire lives. By 2030, we have to have reduced carbon by 50%. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you're vaguely interested in doing some cool stuff, we, the older generation, need to allow them space and give them the ability to be creative and take some of those blocks out. So my Collaborate to Zero book, which I did a series of interviews on, which is all about how do we inspire youngsters and give them roadmaps where they don't keep falling over and they don't go down rabbit holes, because we don't have the time for them to do that.
Yeah.
We need them to be as creative and driven as they possibly can, but going in the right direction.
Because it's quite a common thing, I think, to blame and put the emphasis on governments and on corporates as well to sort of make all this change. But actually it sounds more and more like it's about individuals making their own right choices and giving them freedom to think creatively, I guess, really.
Governments have a massive role to play. But my view on governments is governments don't innovate, they regulate. And governments are not going to sit here and go, I think you should do this, this, and this, and then public sector go out and do it. That innovation pieces, we need to go out there and come up with why driving EVs or creating an EV market, and then let them regulate. So, okay, we need to put car charging points all over the country. So I think anybody who sits there going, oh, government need to do this and it's government's fault, that's a really bad place to be, because it's not their job. Their job is not to facilitate the innovation piece. They're not innovators. They're regulators.
Yeah.
And quite often I hear, oh, I need government to put legislation down. They need to be stronger in their guidance. But in reality, we, the people, will need to find the solutions. I don't believe that there's going to be a magic bullet made by man. We need to work with nature to find that solution. And interestingly, there's soil. If we increase soil fertility by 0.4%, it wipes carbon out completely.
Right.
So a 0.4% change in soil health takes out carbon. So yeah. And
so is that the sort of thing you might be experimenting on with the farm? Because I guess the farm's going to be a bit of a vehicle, isn't it, really, to try out different things?
Who would have thought that I would have learned so much about farming when I was at the farming conference last week? I got asked the question again. So, as an ex-banker, what do you think? I've had more fun reading books about soil health than I ever did reading books about financial analysis. I think there are going to be technologies that can come in that are going to be amazing and will help, but we need to work with nature, whether it be planting trees or whether it be looking at soil health. None of this has got anything to do with Delphis Eco, though. No. Again, one of these random steps. That makes sense in the future. I'm not sure.
But it's a different avenue, I suppose, you're taking now in terms of the passion for sustainability, rather than just focusing on Delphis as the business. You're sort of diversifying, I guess, really.
The logic of the CEO is that he's supposed to be looking, they are supposed to be looking 18 months out. And 18 months out, if I can get waste food or waste ingredients to turn into a raw material that I can use as a cleaning product, that feels like we're driving in a really good direction. So it's inconceivable to me that I can't use recycled plastic. I just couldn't get my head around the fact that we collect plastic. I live in Wandsworth. We collect plastic in Wandsworth. It goes on a barge, because I've seen it go on the barge. It goes down the Thames, gets put onto a boat, and it went to China or it went to Ghana. And then supposedly came back as a different product. It never came back.
Yeah.
So I then challenged the waste collecting site in Wandsworth to say, can I buy your plastic and can I convert your plastic into a plastic bottle? I need plastic bottles because I sell cleaning products in plastic bottles. 6 years later, of lots of fighting with lots of people, we made it happen.
Right.
So that is not a great use of time for anybody who's, it was not a waste of, it was a waste of money and a waste of time. That answer should have been instant. I want to use PCR plastic. Great. Here you go. Shouldn't take 6 years. Okay, I've done it. Everybody else should be using PCR plastic. I've proved it's possible. The logic there is I'm helping our customers who make coffee, they buy their milk, we take the milk bottle, convert it into one of our products, send back the bottle with our cleaning products in it. Can I then take their plastic and their food waste, bring the food waste back, turn the plastic into a bottle and the food waste into a cleaning ingredient and send that back?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think about how do we close the loop the whole time? And it's going to be a curious journey, right? So,
well, that's, I think, probably part of your role now, isn't it, really, as being that entrepreneur who can kind of challenge things and move things along, but clearly very frustrating the time it takes, 6 years to sort of battle to get what seems quite a logical step achieved. But I guess once you had that battle, it builds momentum, doesn't it, really? It's easy to prove it again and again and again.
In 2008, when I started trying to say to a cleaning contractor, use eco-friendly cleaning products, their answer was, well, if it's not singeing my nose hairs, then I'm not
doing the job. Yeah,
it's not doing the job.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's not what you really want. So that was a really hard sell to convince people that actually using a product that doesn't hurt you and or the environment, and it does do a job. Now, there are so many people employed in the sustainability departments, in the carbon reporting departments. There's now an entire industry, and every single company has to disclose its carbon footprint. So it's a much easier place to operate. And if you are in that space, you've got much more. There are many, many more people who are willing to listen to you and to share good ideas. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's paper or using vegetable ink to do signboards. There's all sorts of good ideas.
You mentioned you're reading earlier on. You were reading about farming. So if anybody's interested in sustainability just generally, because it is a massive topic, are there any books or podcasts or anything, other than you've just mentioned your own book, obviously going to recommend that one. But is there anything else you'd recommend?
Reading-wise, quite a lot, actually. The slightly boring end is Bill Gates's book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. I mean, he is just the most phenomenally smart man. One sentence, 50 billion tons. And he talks about how to mitigate the 50 billion tons in all sorts of different ways. So that's fantastic. Gabe Brown is a farmer from America, wrote a book called Dirt to Soil, which is also just a fascinating journey of how do you take something that is effectively dead and build it back and then give it life. And we're in the food industry, how his next door neighbor farmers haven't followed his principles, and they've got Dust Bowl farms, and he's generating an incredible amount of food from his farm, caring about the soil in that, and the carbon sequestration that's going on there. So I think that's really, really interesting. In the back of this book, I interviewed a number of people for their inspirations, and at the back is a reading list and listening list that everybody came up with of what they think is. I love podcasts. There's a podcast called Outrage and Optimism, which is fantastic. And the other thing which slightly surprised me that is not mandatory and governments could do this is there's a documentary called Breaking Boundaries that every single school should mandate, which talks about the different boundaries that we have: ocean, air, land, and how much we are using of it and not using of it, and then tipping points. And once you break the boundary, it's tricky. My brain bounces around all over the place, and I love them. I like letting it go. And I sat next to an architect. He said, I want to be eco-friendly, and I want to build eco-friendly buildings. I was looking at him going, so how are you getting on? I said, well, I'm in the process of building the first building, but we're going to build, it's all social housing. So we're going to build a bunch of these towers. And I said, wouldn't it be cool that if you build the first tower and you have a chute out the side of the tower, and you put plastic in, all your plastic, every bit of plastic you've got, chuck in the chute, and it drops to the bottom. And you have this machine, and these machines exist. It's a pyrolysis machine, which will take the plastic, and it melts the plastic into this glue. And you then chuck other things, like broken glass or sand or whatever it is, and you make bricks.
Right.
And this stuff is as strong as concrete. And then you build the next building. And then you take all of that waste plastic, drop it down, create bricks, and up goes the next building. So you've got this cycle of take waste to create a new,
no transport and no, as you said, shipping goods across the sea, and
a second life. Yeah. And one of the things on the farm, and carbon sequestration, hemp. So you can get non-hallucinogenic hemp, and hemp sequesters carbon 2 to 3 times faster than any tree. So it is a fantastic carbon sequester. I was listening to this talk at the farming conference, and the person said there's 500 different benefits that come out of hemp, be it clothing, handbags, ropes. You can make hemp plastic, but you can make hempcrete. So you then grow hemp, you sequester the carbon, you take the hemp bale, you turn it into hempcrete, concrete,
right.
As a building. So forever, that grass is locked, that carbon is locked in, and you then build a building with completely natural fibers. And that for me just sounds like such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The problem is that the people, you have to have a license to grow hemp, because it doesn't sit in DEFRA. It actually sits in the firearms department.
Oh, really?
Of
Okay.
the Home Office. And the firearms department of the Home Office aren't brilliantly efficient. So anybody who wants to do this, you miss the season, because you have to apply. And by the time they get back to you, planting has gone.
Yeah.
And then you have to apply again. And apparently it's a complete nightmare. And it's inconceivable to me that why the government holds the license to grow hemp in the firearms department versus in DEFRA, where it's growing anything else. Because it is completely non-hallucinogenic and there's nothing you can do with it. Actually, I did eat some seeds, which you can buy hemp seeds at Whole Foods. I don't know if you've had any. But in fact, it's like mini popcorn. They kind of pop in your mouth. Really, really tasty. I was like, oh. So in your recipes, you should be throwing the hemp seeds in, because they give you this real crunch and bite and pop.
So a hemp farmer for the future for you.
Well, I think that's a really easy thing for people to do. To go, let's take some land. Just to put it into context, France has 19,000 hectares of hemp.
Right.
Guess how many acres the UK has?
Very few, I'd imagine.
800.
Really? Okay.
800. So 300 hectares.
Yeah.
France has got 19,000. Why?
Yeah.
So if we want to sequester carbon and we want to turn it into something that is totally cool, that's nature-based solutions coming around. Everything that you look at, this glass. How are we going to make this out of a non-virgin product?
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to. I didn't know. I heard that we've run out of sand. So sand that you use to make windows, we're at the end of sand. So the sand that you get in North Africa is not the right sand. You need river sand. So you need sand that is super fine, that then makes this. We're going to have to think of a different way, because we're not going to have.
And I suppose that's the challenge, isn't it? Is that all these things, when you explain them, seem very logical. The frustration is actually legislation and obstacles that make it very difficult to do.
There's the greatest example of this is IKEA and their LED lights.
Right.
Where IKEA, on a day, just went, we will not sell a single non-LED light in any IKEA store anywhere in the world. And overnight, they created the LED market. And LED prices were this kind of niche product. Instantly, they dropped the price, and now you don't buy non-LED lights anywhere. And so it's as the buyer, we can create that product. It's the responsibility of every single corporate to be thinking about, where am I buying my stuff from? Am I buying something that have I checked the provenance? And the moment we do that, then we're shifting away from nasty products that haven't been properly thought through.
It's vision and bravery, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and license. So to go to the buying departments to go, guys, look here first, and then if we can't get anything, can we create it? And then if we can't do that, then okay, buy it, but mandate that it needs to change.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for your time today. It's a huge subject, and we could talk all afternoon, but thank you very much.
It's a treat, and thank you for inviting me, and hopefully, the curious journey of Mark will help others go.
There's a movie there coming on.
This podcast is powered by BM Caterers. Contacting BM is the easiest way to start your journey to a better workplace experience. Click the link in the description for more info.